Good day. My name is Dr. Golov. I teach political science and ethnic studies, and today I'm going to go over bias, prejudice, discrimination, isms, and equity. In order to understand these concepts, it's important to go over their definitions, because I find in my field that a lot of times the definitions get sometimes confused or conflated between one another. So bias is just a feeling or action or anything that's skewed based on your own perception or your own ideology. Everybody has bias, and there's really no way to avoid it. Bias you can have towards or against people, objects, movies, right? It's just those feelings and actions that come from you that may or may not have any particular backing. And of course, prejudice is the beliefs or opinions that we have without legitimate reason. Literally, the origins of the word, right? Prejudging. So it's when we judge individuals usually without knowing enough information to truly actually judge them. Discrimination is acting on prejudice. A lot of times this has to do with treating someone different than you would another person based on something you've prejudged. And then, of course, isms is whenever we have institutionalized cultural or social prejudice based on inclusion in particularized groups. These groups could be anything from age to gender to socioeconomic status, race, ethnicity, etc. It's just whenever something larger than the individual is able to act on them. And of course, equity is the treatment that's fair and impartial, the way that we can combat all of these isms, prejudices, discrimination, etc. And these are not new issues. You can see here that these have been problematic for hundreds, if not thousands of years of recorded human history, where we have individuals who believe in racial superiority, where we have individuals who believe in sort of ethnocentrism, the idea that some groups of people are natural slaves based on religious preferences, right? And so this is not new to our society. We simply give it a current spin today with the particularized groupings that matter in present day, which have changed over time, right? The systems of oppression and persecution have shifted over and over again, depending on the power structures and who's in power and how that power gets exercised. One area that I always talk to my students about that's really important when you're understanding complexities is to avoid the us and them dynamic, right? So anytime we have conversations about groups or othering, it's really important to remember that the interactions within groups are just as important, maybe more so important than between groups. So here we have a great example. The first group up there of 9 white elite men represent the individuals on the Supreme Court justice who ruled in Plessy versus Ferguson about separate but equal, and created decades, if not centuries, of institutionalized racism in the United States. And then below them, we have 9 white elite males who represented the Supreme Court at the time of Brown versus Board of Education, who legally ended separate but equal and attempted to set the U.S. on a better path toward racial reconciliation. And as you can see, these are the same group on so many different levels, whether it be race, gender, socioeconomic status, etc. So it's important that we don't create an us and them distinction, and that we see that within groups, we have all sorts of changing dynamics. I use this example in class. It's very important when we're talking about particularized groupings to understand that the lived experiences of particular individuals are unique, right? And that the systems of oppression that are put in place leave no one out, right? So whether you're Metexi, a Native American girl who goes missing and it doesn't get recorded anywhere because there's no national recognition for missing Native American women, or whether you're Ashraf, an individual whose Muslim religion is discriminated against quite frequently in the workplace because the established religion in the United States is Christianity. So over and over again, we see all different stories, all different individuals, and inclusions in all sorts of groups, and how these inclusions or exclusions play amazingly important roles in their lives. I always like to use the example of Plessy and Ferguson when we're talking about ways to combat systemic, historical, institutionalized oppression, right? So these two individuals, modern day descendants of the original Plessy and Ferguson, use their influence, their power, their status to go around the country and to teach individuals of the historical context and where they are today. In ethnic studies, we seek an analytical understanding of the cultural, economic, political, and social factors that create the experiences of particularized groups, including their intersection. And here you can see just a handful of the groupings and particularizations that affect individuals. And it's important to note that no one's ever in just one of these bubbles. Inclusion in multiple groups and the way those groups interact with each other is paramount to understanding the lived experiences of any one person in the United States or in the world. Understanding the complexities of the situation, not reducing these individuals to stereotypes, and not allowing our own bias to seep in regarding whether one group is more or less oppressed or more or less included or excluded in society is really important, because we have to shake off those expectations, shake off that bias, and really work toward something more equitable, something more unified. Thank you.